I don't know at what point the church got into the whole let's just do life together buzzwordy. The problem is that like that's actually true of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
What I don't like is that like it becomes like this branding for basically come meet your new best friends and let's be awkward. And then this conversation is doing life together.
Yep.
But like ultimately that is the goal is that our life is a shared life. You know, a couple's having a baby and like they don't have tons of family. They're new to the church. Mm-hmm. And like all of a sudden, this church community became the family for them to experience this moment together. That it wasn't just us and ours. It's like, no. Actually, we end up we're sharing this life. That's life together. But getting to that kind of shared life requires small, awkward steps. Yeah. Where you have like that's why we as a church want to have some of these mid-sized gatherings. Is that it allows a moderate amount of awkwardness, but large enough that the awkwardness gets dispersed.
Right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jacob Sheriff Podcast. Today, we are going to have a conversation on hospitality. And coming out of Jubilee, that was kind of a big theme. That was something that kind of surfaced. And it's like, man, Lord, you're revealing this to us for a reason. So you actually, the first main series after Jubilee, you took, what was it, 5 weeks? Mm-hmm. And taught this as a topic to our whole church. And so we wanted to take the time to kind of explore it in podcast form, reflect on that series, reflect on some of the things we've learned, and then just really kind of talk through like putting it into action. Yeah. It's really challenging. Yes, it's difficult. You know, our lives are busy and so we want to talk through like some of the things that we've been hearing, good reports of hospitality happening in our communities, but also just addressing like, hey, there's some real practical challenges that this presents. And hey, we'll just kind of honestly look at it and say, all right, what can we do? What can we do? How do we keep moving things forward and make this a fully integrated part of our culture, not just a really cool series that we heard and then sort of, let it fade unpracticed. So,
man, I think it is a way that we demonstrate God's love to, all the different seasons or all the different environments and things that we engage in. But I do believe that there are true, there's good intentions, but things are challenging to really be able to make it happen. Or you really have to be intentional with it because we probably in certain seasons don't drift to having a lot of margin and spaces, for those kinds of things. Of course, I mean, there's so much, so many things that you could say are practicing hospitality. It doesn't have to be, always the meal at your home. I think you even talked about this is just what is the life of hospitality and, how do we live with margin in our I don't even remember how you said it, but how do we live in that posture of margin to be able to let our life be shared, whatever that looks like, and not feeling defeated when it can't be everything I want it to be, but how do I be present in it?
I referenced the book by Rosaria Butterfield.
Yeah, that bar is really high.
The gospel comes with a house key, and if you read it, she even gives her weekly schedule, and it's like 6 out of 7 nights a week, sometimes 7 out of 7 nights a week is an open table for whoever. And it could be like 30 people in the home. And she acknowledges the challenge of it, the difficulties of it, that there's some days where there's laundry on the table and, the guest that comes in plays partial host by folding her laundry. And all, but like, so that can set such a high bar that the rest of us look at it and be like, I'm not doing anything then, because if that's what hospitality is, I want nothing to do with it.
Right.
And we've started to adjust some of our language on a number of things. One is we're both introverted people, and there's plenty of times people mishear that. It does not mean we don't like people. It does not mean we don't want to be around people. It means we recharge alone. And so when you're thinking through your energy through the week, we have 5 children, so there's busy schedules, there's activities. We've used introverted language a lot. And at least 3 of our children are introverts, maybe 4. There's only one that we're certain is not an introvert. There's one that we don't really know, but we got 3 introverts. And so because we've used that language in the past to help them understand what they need, they're children. And so the introverts of our children like start demanding it. Like, I'm an introvert and I want to have my time and I need to get my alone time. Please leave me alone. And Mom, why are we doing this? Like, I need my introverted time. And so it's like we've had to
There's
start.
just one like that.
Well, the other two you just see it on their faces.
Of who that might be.
Yes.
But we've had to start changing our language of rather than fight for your introverted time, let's practice loving people well.
Yeah.
And then when you get your time, take advantage of it. And so that was one of the first shifts is let's just start adjusting our language. And then another one is Hannah's always been really good at leading the way in like, let's have people at our home. We have a large family. So like we want to be a host house rather than always just the guest. But she's had to like even like be careful not to take it on herself. And then the rest of us are just now like receiving orders on what we're going to do. So
sometimes you got to do it.
So just even adjusting language. We are hosting.
Yes.
Right.
Our family is hosting.
That was one
this
of the
event.
most. Yeah, that was one of the most neat recent things. Is we had 3 families we were bringing over to the house, and I'm learning because it's one thing for us to get it and walk it out, but we don't have to. But things go better when we can lead
a culture, not just a
go.
practice of the parents, but a culture of the home.
Yeah, because I can say that when we first married, there was so much more margin. We were constantly doing this, and so we had to even recognize what season are we in, because we can't put into practice those things when our house really was the 6 nights a week having people
before
over.
we had kids, just 5 or 6 nights a week. We
just
were
make a
putting
big
nearly
meal.
half of our income on
true.
food for just
whoever would come through.
would come over.
Yeah. So I had to really okay, I can't be there because there is a dynamic of the home and taking care of the needs of those that mothering. But we typically on Sunday or Monday night, whichever one we can sit at the table, we go over our week together. And the kids love to hear what's happening that week, what adjustments. And so I normally lead that and say, this is what this day is going to look like. And always say, it could change, but this is where we're at. Well, this particular time, I mentioned how we were going to host these families, and it was cool. Some of those families are friends to the kids, and so I started divvying out, all right, you're going to take care of preparing the dessert, and you get to be in charge of the games, and you get to help sweep the floor, because I have one that just loves to sweep.
These families that are coming over included a total of 8 additional children.
Yeah.
So with our 5, we were going to have 8 more children over at the house.
Yes. Right. And I think it was just neat to watch them with the preparation, the time to be able to get in that brain space. They were actually disappointed because it turned out we had to cancel the dinner because of a tornado. And they were actually a little disappointed that the preparation, their engagement and heart with it wasn't going to happen. And that was kind of cool, because I think my practice before was, I'll get it all ready and I'll just tell you all about when it's happening. And that was not the right way to lead them through it. And then I would deal with, oh man, Mom, because I can always kind of like get in that mode of putting on a party, or at least preparing the space. That's just something I do love to do. Yeah. And I love to host and all of those things. So that was a recent neat way to see there is intentionality. A plan helps. And if you're leading more than just yourself into it, get people involved, get them around something they enjoy, to where they're asking me, is it going to happen? Like, are we going to get to do this? And we'll see if we get to. So anyway.
Well, one of the things that convicted me early on in the series is, the idea of are you preparing a space for people? And I remember going home one day and looking at our dining room table. We have a nice dining room table. It actually can expand out really big. I love your
dining room table.
It's nice. Beautiful. It's awesome. We got it, after we had sold the house and moved into the parsonage that we're in and things like that. And we're like, oh man, we wanted to get a table that could host a lot of people for that purpose. Yeah. And it just, what stuck out to me is at the time, and we're a pretty busy family, Audrey and I both work full time, and there's just things. And our girls, I love our creative, beautiful, awesome slobs that we have. They do not naturally, I don't have anybody who is just
Yes.
naturally orderly
Yes.
in my home. I don't have that's just not a personality
Not
trait
one that wants to sweep
that
the floor.
Audrey and I reproduced because we didn't have it to begin with. And so anyway, and
Yes.
I'm exaggerating
I know what you mean,
a
yeah.
little bit. My wife keeps a very nice home. I want to
We get
cover
it.
my bases there. But
We get it. I have those.
what stuck out to me though is our table, this very nice dining room table, was hosting clutter. And I was being more hospitable to the junk
That's good.
in my home, to just the random refuse that sort of accumulates.
Yeah.
And that was a space that could have been used for people, and it was hosting just my family's junk.
Yeah.
And that really kind of stood out to me and convicted me. I was like, I'm not prepared
That's good.
for being hospitable. And then we have another room in our house. It's kind of a second living area, or it was a converted garage, and it had just become this kind of accumulation point for just stuff and extra things. And so in the middle of this series, I'm literally like listening to The Gospel Comes with a House Key on audiobook, and I'm in that room just cleaning it out, getting rid of stuff. Most of the stuff in there is my kids' stuff, but some of it is mine. And I'm like, I need to get this stuff in order. And then we started just intentionally investing in that space, because I started to get a vision of like, hey, when we have families over, this is a space for the kids to hang out.
Cool.
I have a too big collection of board games and things like that. And I'm like, these things need to be used and played, and they need to be utilized to create those environments and memories. And that's why I like them so much, is because it's a very easy way to share an experience with other people that you don't have to, have all the social cues. It's just like, hey, we've a new set of rules, and we're all going to try to figure out how to abide by them, and we're just going to have fun in that process. And so we haven't been able to have as many people over as I think we would all aspire to, but we did get to invite a couple over who it was I'll just say their names, Cannon and Megan, but Megan used to nanny the girls, and so they were very excited to have her over. And we just had a great time of just playing games, eating dinner together, and there was just a joy that could be found. And then my girls got to be a part of that process. Like, they got to be a part of creating the space and welcoming them in and things like that. And so they keep asking me, hey, when are we going to have people over again? Cool. I'm like, when you stop having sporting events on the weekends, or when you stop, I'm joking,
busy
but
season of sports.
Everything is just kind of crazy and busy, and it feels like it's hard to find the right time. Well, I think one of the other takeaways is like, you have to create the margin.
Yeah.
You have to
like a budget.
prioritize it. Yeah. We have to be ready to spend more money. We have to be ready to spend more time.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily easy to do those things. If it was easy, maybe more people would do it.
Yeah. It's really, really good.
Yeah, you make time for what's important to you. And to be honest, like, very few people will prioritize hospitality.
Yeah.
And it's okay that there's some that are like the gifted, that are gifted in hospitality will prioritize it. And it's very inspiring for the rest of us. But if you don't prioritize it, then there's nothing in our lives that's gravitational pull moves us toward a more communal, hospitable life. And so you have to make a choice. If this matters to us, then we have to put the energy into it and the prioritization into it, and be willing to pay the price for it. And what I was trying to say, and a lot of that series was me desiring to rise to the occasion, not the expert that looks down at everybody saying, you should come to me.
I've been doing this for years.
It's more like, I am on this journey too. Here's what I'm seeing. That like, when it comes to being the people of Jesus, this really isn't optional.
Yeah.
How it gets practiced can vary, but it has to matter to us. And that's what I think becomes far more of our cultural influence, is our willingness to be hospitable to people, even people who would take advantage of us or say nasty things about us, our enemies. It isn't to say that we have to have a deep relationship with everyone, or that we have to nurture a depth of relationship with people who do hate us. We need to keep the door open, though. We have to. We are supposed to extend, or the last message in the series that I get is build that bridge. Every relationship has two sides to the bridge, and many times, because we've been hurt, and there's sometimes it's appropriate to pull the bridge up, and it's not the season or time with that specific person. But the temptation is that we just live selfishly and we just keep the bridge up for everyone. And we're called to build the bridge at least halfway to people. And hospitality, in various forms, is our way of doing it. And it helped me by having to communicate it, start to shift my mind rather than, oh man, I have to do this. I'd rather be by myself.
Right.
This is an opportunity for me to practice what I'm preaching and do the uncomfortable and the awkward. It feels funny and awkward.
Yeah.
One of my most joyful moments in this whole series, I think it was before I was finished. We were at a meeting for all the parents at our school who have children in athletics. So it's kind of an athletic meeting, kind of giving expectations. And two things were just like I had this big smile on my face. The person that was leading it, who is not a church staff member, so this is a member of the body, say, our church's mission is to see people transformed by Jesus. And I'm like, that brings so much delight that it isn't just the staff talking about this. Like, we really see this as God's mission.
Yeah.
And then secondly, as she continues, say, listen, we're growing in our hospitality, and this is what matters to us as a church, and it's going to matter to us as a school, and it should matter to us as a sporting community.
Yeah.
That this gym is our home, and we are inviting these teams, these referees, into our home, and we should treat them with honor and respect and dignity. And I'm remembering that. And just a couple nights ago, we had a game where another school comes, and it's a competitive school. It wasn't like, a school that our school just gets totally bashed by, and it's not a school that we can beat everyone. So the different games had different results, and I was getting like popcorn or something in the line, and someone from the other school came up, and like my normal thing is like, I'll talk if they talk to me, but I don't know them, they don't know me, so we can just stand here awkwardly. and I'm like, no, this is our home, and I'm the host. And so I turned around and just started asking questions. They had one of the young girls about one of my daughter's age, so I was able to engage with her a little bit. And anyway, like that. And then I saw the athletic director, shook his hand, told him how much we appreciated him being here, and that we're a close enough school that we want to make sure that we treat you guys well. And so it's me like having to do what my normal comfort zone would keep me from doing.
Right.
Like putting a demand. And I like to talk about things that put a demand on me, because otherwise I might not prioritize this. And so talking about hospitality is not because I'm gifted at it. It's actually quite the opposite. It's because I must grow in it. And it's helping me reframe. We might not be able to host people 6 days a week at our home, but I can at least be gracious and kind to people intentionally to create that space for them to encounter Jesus, and if at least receive some kindness.
Yeah.
I think
I
was going to say, I think one way that hospitality can get demonstrated like in your communities is things like showing up for the community that you call your community. Meaning, we're in a season with lots of babies being born and those kinds of things. I know this is a silly thing, but I think as much as possible, if you're connected in relationship with people, is you show support and hospitality in their life by taking participation in those kinds of things. So being at those showers, or meal trains.
The amount of meal trains for people with whether it be like some illness or injury or a new baby, and it's expensive.
Yeah,
and it's difficult, but like.
And that's not like a condemnation statement.
Yeah,
like go and be on everyone and go to everything.
But it's a practical way.
But it's one way you can take a step.
Yeah, it's a way to take a step, especially in the seasons of like a lot of schedule commitments and those kinds of ways. I think that's a way we can, just create space and margin to show people love.
Well, some of the ways that we're just even as a church here locally in Durant trying to activate and spur some of this on is our mid-sized gatherings. Like we just started once a month gathering for young adults, and I went and popped in. I don't qualify, age restrictions and appearance definitely I was getting some weird looks when I was in there. I was like, hey.
You had to pull the church staff card.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm here because I'm staff member.
Anyway, so I walk in and I'm talking to some of the guys that are there, and I just had a great conversation with one of them. He's like, man, I'm just grateful that we have something like this, because if you're in that age range and you're not married, you're single, and you're trying to follow the Lord, like there's not a whole lot to do in our area. And so his observation was it's just great to have a space to come and be with other believers. And when you're in that kind of environment, it's like you're looking and longing for community.
That's right.
And if you're in an awkward in-between space and there's not something for you to connect to, you're going to go try to find it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
And, in this area, like you don't have a lot of good options.
That's right.
I mean, you're going to spend time at a bar, or you're going to go to the casino and blow money, or you're just not going to have a lot of fruitful connections or opportunities. And so just preparing the table. And that's all that event is. It's not a chance to come and hear somebody teach or anything like that. It's just, hey, we're going to share a meal together. We're going to pray for each other, and ignore the tornado warning together. But that we're hoping that things like that will start to catalyze more of this culture of hospitality that we want to see. Things like our men's breakfast that's happening once a month, our Flourish gatherings, things like that they're opportunities for us to practice without the full burden of necessarily hosting somebody, but to learn the skills and the practices, and to engage at what level we can. It's Ben, our producer here, was just sharing some really cool stories of how he's been seeing this start to kind of bleed through and be practiced in our community. Just people inviting like big numbers of families over to like do a housewarming party and things like that, or just the a couple who hasn't been coming here but for a few years, like finding community and connection to the point where they are expecting a new baby, and she invited a member of the church to be a part of that process, even in the delivery and stuff like that. And it's just beautiful moments of like our families blending together and just really sharing life together with each other. Like that is how we are a witness to our world.
Hey, we're glad you're enjoying the podcast.
Hey, Ben here is the one who mainly edits the podcast, so give it up for Ben. And what else should they do, Ben?
Please like, subscribe, and comment. Definitely comment.
Absolutely. All of these things really help us with the YouTube algorithm. And what it does is it means that the more that you comment, like, and subscribe, the more that we get shown on people's front page of YouTube.
And I get to keep my job.
You get to keep your job.
Thanks.
Yeah, back to the episode.
I hate buzzwords. And I don't know at what point the church got into the whole let's just do life together buzzwording. The problem is that like that's actually true of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
What I don't like is that like it becomes like this branding for basically come meet your new best friends and let's be awkward. And then this conversation is doing life together.
Yep.
It's like, no.
Checking the box.
That's a conversation.
Yeah.
That's not doing life together. So I don't want anything we do to fall prey to cliches or branding issues. But like ultimately that is the goal. Is that our life is a shared life. It doesn't have to be a sermon message. It doesn't have to be a branding issue. It doesn't have to be a marketing pitch, because it's weird if you don't know what it means. That sounds so weird to people who are new to the faith, new to Christian community, new to a church. But it is what we're after, is that kind of shared life, is that the story you're saying is a couple's having a baby and like they don't have tons of family. They're new to the church. And like all of a sudden this church community became the family for them to experience this moment together. That it wasn't just us and ours. It's like, no. Actually, we end up shared. We're sharing this life. That's life together. Doing life together. But getting to that kind of shared life requires small, awkward steps. Where you have like that's why we as a church want to have some of these mid-sized gatherings. Is that it allows a moderate amount of awkwardness, but large enough that the awkwardness gets dispersed.
Right. You can tell some of these strategies were improvised by introverts.
Absolutely. But a few people have to take responsibility to fight through the awkward, to keep at it, because what's on the other side of all of that becomes a culture of love and a shared life that is the Christ-centered life.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons we have a coffee shop in our foyer, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's to create this in-between space where you don't have to be fully aware of all of the unspoken rules of coming to church.
Yeah.
It's like, just come in, enjoy like this kind of mid-ground space where you can just have a conversation. You can sit at a table, you can share a cup of coffee, you can share a meal, and you can just get to know each other. Like it's kind of telling of just sort of a snapshot of where we are as a culture, where like even generationally, we don't know how to just engage in conversation. The younger generation, like if it's not mediated through technology or some sort of device, it's like we don't know what to do. And so us as the church, we need to reclaim those core, just basic human to human connection practices. They're just so important. And so I got a little philosophical there, but I see the beauty of what can happen whenever you come into a space and you're accepted and loved and known, and you feel safe enough for you to be able to pay attention and hear the word of the Lord, and the Holy Spirit is able to minister to you through the love of community, through the love that's expressed through time with your neighbors. And then all of a sudden, your life starts to look different and is changed and transformed. And then that love spills over into the relationships that you have. Like, that's just the beauty of what it means to follow Jesus, is when we do these things and we walk them out and we're faithful to what was modeled to us and what originally invited us into this life. And then we continually extend that invite. It's just, it can be really beautiful when it's actually being practiced.
I really love doing hospitality alongside my sister and sister-in-law, because, man, we are the dream team when it comes to those things. So even like an encouragement would be, maybe it's you're not going solo into the hospitality, but find somebody and do it together.
I've had a small group for many years now, and the core hook to draw people in is it's a game night. It's a men's board game night.
Yeah.
And, when people hear the term board games or they hear things like that, everybody kind of has an assumption of what what that might look like or what that might, that experience might be. But time and time again, whenever people sort of make that chance, they take the chance on it and they show up, it's what I love about games, just as a thing, is you don't have to be an expert to participate. And you don't, if you're hosting it well, it's all about creating an experience that we can share together that gives us that chance to build the rapport so that we can actually talk about things that are more meaningful than just the game itself. Right. And so that to me, I enjoy sharing that with people, teaching that those experiences with people, because there's like pure joy that can kind of emerge whenever the stress of the social dynamic of
and what to do with the time.
And
that's good.
And it's not about the games; it's about creating the joy and the experience and the safety that kind of thing can provide. And then, now I'm comfortable with you. You're comfortable with me. We have a little bit of, we've played something together, and it's been, we've got something to build on. And now we can have a conversation and we can talk about life and how challenging it is to be a man in this, the culture that we live in, and how difficult it can be to raise a family, and how, navigating all of the different struggles, because we have some sort of shared experience. Like jumping into that too quickly without a chance to get to know each other can be difficult. And I'm not a great person at small talk, talking about nothing for, 30 minutes before we get to talk to, about anything real. Like, that's really uncomfortable. And I don't have the social awareness to pick up on those cues and just be able to jump into it. And so games for me have been this, this bridge to help connect with people, and to give, space for them to kind of engage on their timeline. It's like, you just keep coming, enjoy yourself, have fun, But at some point, we're going to be in a situation where it's like, hey, you know what? I feel comfortable enough, and I'm going to open up and I'm going to share. And that has happened so many times over the years, and in the group that I lead, and it's one of the things I love sharing with my kids and bringing other people over. We have some just really silly, goofy games that you create that environment. You have a moment, and it's a shared memory that you experience together, and then you talk about it later on. You've got a story to share. And anyway, that's one of the things I do. Probably too much. Audrey would comment on the size of my collection of games, and I've been trying to move some of them out of the house because I'm like, that one doesn't necessarily get played, and it's just taking up space. And anyway, maybe we could speak a little bit to this tension of, sharing our lives, but also not allowing our lives to just get overwhelmed with activity and to the place where we're not actually giving anything out. We're just kind of being swept along for the the journey and the busyness and things like that. I know that that's something I have to keep in tension because, like we had even expressed in the episode we just did on politics, is like there's this tension between idolatry and isolationism. Like I can definitely drift into that, even just relationally with people's like, my preference is just give me time to myself and I'll isolate, and we don't necessarily have to engage in community. But then on the other side of that is like not actually giving the space necessary for you to recharge and refuel to where you do have like things you have something to give.
I don't know. We so need rhythm, in our lives, but to be able to recognize short spurts and seasons where it will look differently and giving it permission to look differently, I think helps us properly engage with what we are handed or how we respond and how we react to what that is. But I do think that even in parenting and even in just this whole topic, and recognizing how it's impacting different kids and all of those things, is I do think we have to hold in tension this thing of me time and like getting all of that, and let it not drift into just like a selfishness of I have to have this, and if I
deserve
don't,
this,
I
need
deserve
this,
it, or if I don't, then I have permission to be a grouch, or those kinds of things. I think is part of that tension you have to hold together, because sometimes the demands or the things that can feel like an obligation, if we reversed it and saw it more as an opportunity, then we can relate to it completely different, and so in the season where this is probably going to be happening, I start thinking about, man, there are many people that don't have a family potentially to belong to. There are many people that will sit alone in this season. And so it helps me even shift into all the obligations, the opportunities, all of that, and recognize I don't ever take it for granted. And that alone flips the script, on how to engage in the things. But I mean, I think the self-awareness to know how those things are impacting you, what's the motivation, in those things, where's my heart, and how is it affecting, all of those things helps us discern how to commit.
I look at it because I want to be fully present to people, and then when I've hit a certain limit, I know I want to fully disengage, and I've had to take some internal monitoring of like how much is just I just genuinely need to rest, and how much of it is I'm being selfish and I'm wanting something for self. And I think part of when I think of is like Romans 12:9 says, "Let your love be genuine." So two things come to mind with your specific question is whenever I'm doing something, whether I want to do it or not, holiday season, we don't want to be too busy, but like whatever I am committed to, make sure that my love is genuine. I'm there to I'm genuinely love people and be present to people. On the other side, part of the whole idea of Sabbath in general is because I think we just, as a people, as an American culture, we live with just sort of a low-grade fever of exhaustion or tiredness. And it's because when we disengage, we don't actually disengage. We just shuffle a different kind of activity.
Right.
And so we just sort of live that until we crash. And then when we crash, we get super selfish. So it's that vacation.
Yeah.
And we want to get on that vacation. Well, then it's like, well, I'm on vacation, so I have a full excuse to be selfish and a grouch and, treat people like they're my servants instead of like human beings. I'm caricaturing it a little bit. But like when it comes to holiday season, it's like everything's an obligation.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hang on. Well, what if I could remove obligations and institute the things that I can express God's love in?
Good.
Yeah.
So, I don't like we got 5 kids. So it's like, there's like 5 different sets of obligations on top of our own family. So there are some times where it's like, this is just frustrating and annoying. Yeah. But if I'm there, then I need to make sure that my love is genuine when I'm there.
Right.
When I'm present to that. And then when I'm looking at the schedule, it's like making sure that there actually is some Sabbath time that isn't just fill with another kind of scheduling thing, or things that don't recharge. That's just part of the Sabbath practice. Is it's not just disengage for a flesh fest, where I'm just feeding my flesh whatever I want. So I'm going to binge entertainment and stuff my face with whatever food I want that day and just call it Sabbath. It's not an excuse for the flesh to indulge.
Right.
It's a time to let the dust settle and engage with God in a different way that is more restful. And it could include, more sleep. But it's more like we have to disengage so that when we re-engage, we're engaging with the love of God.
Right.
And the holiday season, it may be more challenging to do that. But we're not to live swept up in the expectations of others, swept up into cultural expectations, swept up into other obligations. Yeah. We're called to be present to Jesus and people. Yeah. So some things we might have to say no, and it disappoint others. Some things we need to do, and we may not want to. But all of that's for this. I'm not a disciple of the scheduling obligations. I'm a disciple of Jesus. And so I want to be fully present in love to the things that I am committed to, but also balance it with enough Sabbath that recharges my love by connecting with the Lord so that I can be present with love to people.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this topic or theme before we wrap things up?
I think it's important to know, like, we're not trying to arrive to a destination, but this is something that is just part of the journey.
Yeah.
So there'll be times where you feel like you're rocking it and times you're not. Times you'll need it from others, maybe more than you can give. And that is totally okay. Yeah. So that's my final thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. When doing this series, I did not want it to fall prey to what nearly every other series is. People feel inspired. It feels good. They learn something. They want to do something. And then a couple of weeks go by and we don't even remember we talked about it. Yeah. I did not want that for this to fall prey. I knew though I had to get it out in front of people because I need to get it out in front of myself. Yeah. And I don't want this. We need to remain vigilant in this becoming cultural. Moving towards it becoming cultural. And that just requires a lot of practice and a lot of ups and downs and recognizing that a lot of us may not be very good at it, but we need to keep trying. We need to keep growing at it. And when we find ourselves in a rough season where we're just not able to do it much like we would desire, it's okay to rely on others. It's okay to team up. Yeah. And it's none of this is a guilt trip on people that and I remember saying it numerous times. This is not a finger wagging. You should. This is very much who we are in Christ. So let's live in alignment with who we are in Christ. This is what Jesus did. And what he calls us to, it's not an optional part of our discipleship. This is a core part of our discipleship. And it's who we need to be as the people of God. I'm speaking to myself in that. We're growing in that. We're getting better at it. I'm renewing my mind to the truth. More and more and more, and having to practice it. And it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, and I don't like it in my flesh, but I see growth as in my discipleship with Jesus.
Yeah, really absolutely. Yeah. Well, I want to encourage each of you out there listening, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the hospitality series, you definitely want to go and find that. I'm sure we'll include a link on where you can get that in the description as well. It was a very timely and inspiring and challenging series, and we should all be seeking and striving to grow in our hospitality, because Jesus has set the table for us, and we get to participate in sharing his table with other people, and it's just a beautiful thing. So with that does bring us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Please be hospitable and share this with somebody who you think would enjoy it, and we will see you on the next one.